Chapter 7. Strategy. It was his cunning and deception that was often to give the ninja edge over his enemies, according to ninja scholar Okuse. These truths were emphasized and sharpened during the amazing training in espionage tactics that the ninja underwent. The ninja raised espionage to a highly developed art centuries before such thorough training was given to cloak and dagger agents in Western countries. Organized along strict military lines, ninja were divided into three ranks: jonin, leaders; chunin, sub-leaders; and genin, ordinary agents. The jonin maintained an extensive intelligence network, made contacts with the warlords to engage in spying and subversive activities, and then sent out his chunin and genin to fulfill those contracts. It was an iron code of discipline that the ninja bound himself to. It was sworn to secrecy on the tactics of his art, and extreme steps were taken to ensure that the techniques did not pass into enemy hands. The fate for disloyalty was swift and certain. The informer was relentlessly tracked down and put to death. Three essential qualifications were demanded of a ninja: a high sense of duty, a quick mind, and a healthy, agile body able to undergo the rugged training demanded of a ninja. Nothing was considered too remote to be overlooked by the ninja if it could conceivably be used in helping him achieve his objective. Thoroughness was the key to ninja training, and special studies, tactics, and strategies were developed to a point that would put to shame the training of modern-day secret agents. Incredible as it sounds, the ninja was expected to develop the ability to predict the outcome of a struggle. Based on scientific premises, it involved the refinement of his insight into three key elements: earth, air, and man. Satenjitsu, or insight into the air, meant that the ninja understood how to take advantage of atmospheric conditions based on his knowledge of astrology, divination, and meteorology. The Koga school refers to the Foen phenomenon, described by the dictionary as a warm, dry wind blowing down a mountainside. Well known in the United States, this phenomenon is called a Santana in the western part of the country. The ninja's ability to recognize this unique condition as conducive to the setting and rapid spreading of fires enabled him to make use of it for setting the enemy camp ablaze. A dry season was also considered an ideal time for using fire to trap the enemy, drive him into an ambush, or confuse and scatter his forces, then hunting them down piecemeal. Windy nights were also propitious for incendiary work, since fire spreads quickly and is difficult to contain, but the ninja first determined the direction of the wind so that a fire set on the edge of an encampment would spread inward or toward an area where most of the structures were located. Yi, or I Ching's Book of Changes, now translated into English, was available to the ninja. This book of Chinese divination, astrology, and meteorology dealt with recognizing and taking advantage of atmospheric changes, among other things. Just as dry weather could be used to set fires, so too other types of weather could be put to good advantage by the ninja. Moonless nights, for example, were the best times for sneaking into an enemy castle or villa. Clad in white and wearing sandals with metal blades tied on the bottom for easy walking, the ninja also ventured out during blizzards and snowy nights. Blending into the surrounding white landscape, he could easily slip past guards during such low visibility conditions. Dark, stormy nights were also excellent for slipping into an enemy camp or launching a commando raid, especially if it rained, since guards would be reluctant to stand out in the open and would cut their patrolling down to a minimum. All this the ninja was required to be aware of as part of Satenjitsu. The Earth Principle. Observations and predictions founded on the Earth Principle were included in the ninja's Sakijitsu stratagems. One of the most important points was the old military strategy of holding the high ground for a battle. Besides occupying high vantage points on land in preparation for an encounter, it also meant taking advantage of the natural features of the land, including ditches and rock formations for hiding, escaping, ambushing, etc. Ninja, who often served as military consultants to warlords, naturally were expected to make themselves completely familiar with the terrain well before the impending battle or ambush. Had a ninja been a consultant to the Duke of Wellington, for example, he would have discovered the famous sunken road beforehand and devised a stratagem to lure Napoleon's cavalry into it deliberately. If he had been advisor to General Robert E. Lee at Gettysburg, he would have urged him to press his successful counterattack on the first day by dislodging the Union Army from Cemetery Ridge before it could dig in, and to immediately seize the strategic flanking high ground of Culp's Hill on one side and the Big and Little Round Tops on the other. And he certainly would have done his best to prevent Custer from riding into Sitting Bull's ambush at the Little Bighorn, for the ninja was not only adept at setting up an ambush, but was instinctively wary of stumbling into one. Satsujin Jitsu, or insight into man, was more than just instant character analysis for the ninja. Since he was familiar with the science of physiognomy, he was able to read the facial features of his fellow man. He dealt with people on a system of awards and punishments, dispensing one or the other according to the personality and circumstances involved. He made it his business to know whether or not the enemy was strongly united, closely observing his character and sizing up his strengths and weaknesses, either as an individual or as a member of a group, as well as the entire group itself. 5 feelings. In dealing with people, the ninja also operated on the Gojo-Goyoku principle of 5 feelings and 5 desires. The 5 feelings were actually character flaws and included targets who were likely to make costly mistakes or who were susceptible to bribery, blackmail, bullying, and intimidation. They were people with a strong sensual appetite, a quick temper, a tender heart, a tendency toward laziness, and a meek spirit. The first of these, Kisha, had to do with sensual pleasures and probably goes back to the first secret agent who ever tried to subvert a victim. Even today, it is one of the most popular methods of getting someone to spill his guts. Once the ninja learned that his enemy was a vain, self-indulgent person, he would do everything possible to cater to that weakness in his character. He flattered him, wined and dined him, and enticed him with beautiful women. This was where the kunoichi, or female ninja agent, proved most useful. These Japanese matahari were used for drawing secrets from the enemy or even for assassinating him. The beautiful ninja might be placed in the employ of the intended victim, and there use all her feminine wiles to gain his good graces. Since it was the custom in those days for women to wear an elaborate hairdo similar to that worn by geisha today, it would be no problem for the kunoichi to conceal a long, sharp hairpin the size of a darning needle in her coiffure. After the enemy lord had satisfied himself and finally dropped off to sleep, the ever-watchful female ninja would take out the needle-like hairpin and stab him through the heart, the eye, ear, temple, or other mortal place. A male ninja might be sent into the castle or villa of the lord to help her escape or assist her in case something went wrong. It goes without saying that she had carefully cased the joint and worked out the best escape route well beforehand. The dosha concept involved taking advantage of man's short temper, inducing him to something rash. Ayago would have made a perfect ninja in the employ of a rival lord anxious to get jealous, hot-tempered Othello out of the way. Iago. Using an overly sympathetic or soft-hearted person was termed Aisha. Thus, a ninja might concoct some elaborate sob story in order to enlist the enemy's sympathy and thereby win his confidence. A lazy enemy fond of idle amusements and entertainment was tempted with more of the same in what was known as rakusha. Hideyoshi Toyotomi, one of Japan's greatest samurai heroes, was in the process of uniting Japan in the late 16th century, but had a lot of trouble taking Odawara Castle, seeing that his long siege was getting nowhere fast. The clever general devised a stratagem in which he held wild, all-night parties full of lovely, laughing girls out in the open and carefully within sight of his frustrated enemies who were manning the castle walls. The idea was to tempt the lazy, amusement-seeking soldiers among the enemy forces to desert or lose their fighting spirit. It came as no real surprise, then, when the Odawara Castle defenders capitulated a short time later. Kyosha, or handling the cowardly, the meek, and those unwilling to put their lives in jeopardy was another kettle of fish. Genghis Khan was probably the master of this stratagem. The Mongolian leader, when sweeping through the cities of Persia and Arabia, gave each city a day or so to surrender. If they refused, he would storm the walls and slaughter every living soul inside, then make a huge mound of their heads. The word soon got around, so that after a while just his threats alone or his mere appearance in the horizon were enough to convince them, even the most stubborn city, that it should open its gates to his golden horde. Thus, dire threats would be aimed at the meek, sympathetic appeals to save the women and children at the soft-hearted, promises of a life of ease and idle entertainment at the idlers, dares, challenges, and insults at the short-tempered, and flattery and lures of fleshly pleasures at the vain and self-indulgent. The 5 desires were centered around pride, wealth, sex, pleasure, and earthly appetite. As in the case with the 5 feelings, the ninja appealed to the fulfillment of these desires in order to use the victims to his own advantage.